it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's getting their plans ready and the food ready for Thanksgiving in a few weeks. November is still a solid month for entertainment-wise. Like we just reviewed Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein on Netflix. We did... I can't think of the other one. Not The Running Man.
Badlands.
Badlands. Thank you, Bernie. I'm sorry. I got a lot in my head right now because I think I'm just trying to gather my thoughts for this one, given I should be doing that. But, I'm only as professional as I can be on a weekend. So we're going to be talking about another Stephen King adaptation, the most recent ones being The Long Walk this year that we reviewed a few months ago, and then the It series that is the Welcome to Derry show that is currently going on with HBO. And this one is from one of Burn and mine's favorite directors, Edgar Wright, and that is the remake of Running Man, starring Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, Jamie Lawson, I believe is her name, from Sinners and The Batman. And then also features Katie O'Brien in there because she's a good up-and-comer. But this is a spoiler-free review, so we're not going to get super into it and ruin it for those who hadn't seen it. So if you did like the movie or you just like talking to me, like hearing from me and Bern, feel free to show your support with a thumbs up, give us that like, submit. Oh my God, I can't talk right now. Click the bell, ring the bell for notifications, and of course subscribe. We appreciate you all for that, so thank you. For those of you who aren't familiar with what The Running Man is, I'm not talking about the dance that's very popular and whatnot. It is a Stephen King novel from, I believe, 1982, in which it takes place in a dystopian 2025 in the U.S., where the main character, Ben Richards, is, due to economic situations and personal health and whatnot, he has to subject himself to a show called The Running Man, in which a few people are chosen to survive for 30 days. And that's from people hunting him. It's almost like, it kind of reminds me of The Purge and then, and like John Wick in a way, where just everybody coming out of nowhere. And stuff,
even a predecessor to something like the Hunger Games or Battle Royale.
Oh yeah, very much like Battle Royale, very similar to that. But so if you've seen those movies that we just talked about, it's got similar vibes. I think I was really looking forward to this one because the trailer was snappy. I like Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin. I basically the cast, and it looked good. But for an Edgar Wright movie, this was pretty much on the disappointing side. Before I get into my critiques and whatnot, Bern, what did you think about this one? And, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was looking forward to this one because of all the reasons that you mentioned, it being an Edgar Wright movie. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. And it being an adaptation of, the Stephen King story, with a lot of themes and elements that are very relevant to today. I thought this could be a really cool movie to sort of see in theaters and to sort of have fun with sort of the things that are a little bit current in a way, and disappointingly so in that sense. But it felt like all the elements were there to lend itself to being a hit. You got Edgar Wright, who I like. You have Glenn Powell, who I really enjoy in movies as of late. And you have all those other plot elements that can make this very interesting and fun watch while also commenting on a lot of things that are going on in society. And while it doesn't completely fumble all those elements seem to sort of work individually. It's just as a whole, the movie doesn't quite live up to the sum of its parts, unfortunately for me. We were just talking earlier, but I was telling you how if you were to tell me that Edgar Wright didn't direct this movie, I would have probably believed you, just because a lot of his usual snappy editing, that visual flair, that the really crisp and punchy and almost a double entendre dialogue where it's always everything is sort of building on itself, and it's all feels very thought out, and everything's just sort of stepping stones to what leads to a lot of the climaxes in his movies. Unfortunately, here those elements don't quite come together, and that's interesting because I believe the screenwriter here was one that he's worked on before with Scott Pilgrim versus the World, so it should have landed in a way that movie did, But for this one here, I'm not sure exactly where it sort of went wrong in that sense. I think maybe it was one of those things where maybe the action along with the themes were a little bit too much to handle. I'm not sure, but it feels like it all should have worked well. It's kind of one of those things where you're like wondering at what point did this go wrong for this not to work as well as it should have. Because he's a very, very capable director, and you have a lot of really good actors doing pretty well. Glenn Powell, I think, was very entertaining here as someone who's just so angry all the time. Coleman Domingo feels like he had that energy that the rest of the movie should have had, that huge flair, that boisterousness, but there's something underneath there that it doesn't quite fit and isn't quite right, and it's a little bit darker, and I feel like that should have been the sort of the tone of this whole movie, but it doesn't quite reach that levels. It does in certain sequences, but overall it just doesn't really come together, and it was a pretty frustrating watch, and it feels like for maybe like the first half I was enjoying myself, and then sort of the back end, in particular the third act, it just kind of like didn't really come together. So that's really really weird to say, especially for an Edgar Wright movie where almost the third acts are always so incredibly satisfying and everything sort of builds to this awesome crescendo that he's been setting up from the beginning. And yeah, it just didn't work for me this time around, and that's unfortunate to say. It didn't work for me in the sense that all the elements were still fine. It still works. I wouldn't say this movie was bad at all, but when you're coming to it with the expectations that we sort of have with this director and all these actors, it was disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, 100% I agree with you on that. Like, it's mostly just the fact that it's Edgar Wright who did this. That's the biggest disappointment for me, is that this did not feel like his movie. And I know the traditional scapegoat for like big pop culture blockbusters or superhero whatever films in general, it's usually the studio that does meddling. I want to say that is it, but at the same time, I can't comment on that. I haven't seen anything on that, so that's just my personal opinion on that. But other than that, again, it looked good. There were some, cinematography was standard. I like that it did try and still bring back the 80s nostalgia a lot better than like one movie that comes to mind that's very satirical with the 80s and stuff was RoboCop. The one with Joel Kinnaman, it took itself way too seriously. And this one kind of had those moments of getting a little too serious, but I think the satire could have been a lot better. It was definitely more on point than some other movies that have tried to replicate from those times and stuff like that. Glenn Powell, I think definitely this was all on his shoulders. He did not disappoint me in any way. I thought he was great. He was actually like one of the funniest dudes in this one. And Coleman Domingo, he was one of the reasons why I wanted to see this, just because him as the host, I was expecting him to be more like almost darkly funny. And I feel like him and Brolin were not used well enough in this one. So I mean that's just, I was expecting to see a good portion of them as well. But yeah, like I said, just for Edgar Wright standards, it's not great. It's not like, given you can't really compare this to Scott Pilgrim or the Cornetto trilogy. Last Night in Soho, that was a great movie, and that definitely was out of the norm for him, but he still killed it. So I don't know what went wrong with this. It definitely felt discombobulated with what it was trying to do, the messaging and stuff like that, but still a fun watch. For that, I'm going to give it a soft 3 out of 5. I think it's still a good movie to go see, especially with everything going on in the world and something to just kind of help take your mind out of it. Kind of reminds you that things could be a lot worse than they are now, but I'm not going to get into that on this. That's for personal stuff. I still would recommend it, but maybe for a $5 Tuesday, or if you have like a movie theater subscription like Bern and I do with AMC and stuff, just to help save the cost and whatnot. So yeah, solid film. Just, it could have been better in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for an action romp, with some good performances and some fun sequences and generally some good cinematography, you're gonna get that here. But if you're looking for a movie that has a little bit more to say about a society that's undergone just sweeping, just not it's hard to say without really delving too much into the movie, but inequality in terms of economics and just how the rich and the powerful sort of prey on the underclass people. it sort of disappoints on that end when it's trying to make commentary on that, and that's a little bit disappointing because again the subject matter and along with the people involved in the movie, this should have been right up my alley and something I really enjoyed, but overall it doesn't quite reach the highs that I wish it did. It does certainly in moments. I will say the Michael Cera sequence was probably my favorite in the movie. But yeah, everything else around that, I was just wanting for more of that, and I wish the movie could have given me that a little bit more. So yeah, it's by no means a terrible movie, but if you're sort of looking for a prime Edgar Wright movie, this isn't going to scratch that itch for you. But if you're just going in for a decent time at the movies with some good action and some good comedy here and there, you'll probably be entertained. So for me, this one is also going to be a 3 out of 5. I wish I liked it more, but we get what we get.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's kind of hard to, I hate to say it, since we've been lucky to see both Frankenstein and Predator Badlands recently. The next movies are it's going to be hard to follow up on that, given it's a different thing. But yeah, but 3 out of 5 for both me and Byrne. So for those of you who did happen to watch it without spoiling it, let us know what you thought about the movie. Like I said, we still got some more stuff coming out in November. Avatar 3 is now my most anticipated movie for the rest of the year. So until next time, everyone, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.